Good day, everyone, and welcome to the July 15th meeting of the Citizen Oversight Board, also known as Dr. April Alexander's last meeting with us. So a terribly sad day for the board. Just wanted to start off the meeting by, in addition to acknowledging a quorum, say thank you, April, for all that you've done. And I know we've already had one of these, but heck, nobody can get too much praise in their life. So thank you very much for all your contributions to the board, for your investment in being part of the executive team of the board, and so many various knowledge contributions to our work. Really appreciate you, and we're really sad to see you go.
Yeah, thank you all again. I won't drag this out, but thank you for your trust in me on this board, not just the board members, but community. Very sad to leave this board at this time, but know that the great work will continue with our board members, especially some of the ones who've been onboarded, and just so grateful to have met you all virtually, because I still have not seen you all in person, but just again, thank you all so much.
We'll miss you, April.
Bye.
Okay, but she still has to be on for this meeting. So we'll do one more virtual hug goodbye at the end. Just a quick overview of the meeting today. So we'll do our typical, votes for passing the agenda. We also have had a member volunteer to be vice chair. So we will go through an election for Nick Weber. Thank you, Nick. So think about if you'll vote him in or not.
Julia, there's some background noise.
I know. I'm sorry. There are lots of people talking right near me. This is the quietest place I could find. It should be better soon. I'll go over quickly where we are with the monitor hiring. I'll do a quick update on some of the important milestones that happened between our last meeting and now. We'll talk a little bit about schedule changes, and then we are joined today by the Nominating Committee. So for those who may be unfamiliar, the COB has a unique way of getting board members added, and so nominating committee members have joined us today to sort of talk about that, and we have a couple of upcoming recruitments, so excited to help them help us and move forward with a couple of spots getting filled, and then we have got a pretty robust executive session agenda. And so we may end our public session early depending on where we get to. Oh, the last thing we'll do in public session today is we have invited community members to be able to provide us with any additional feedback for the hiring of the monitor. And so if we are joined by public participants, so far it doesn't look like any, but should any join and want to provide us feedback on that process, we are open. Process and skills and capabilities we're looking for. Okay, well, let's dive right into it. So hopefully everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and if there are no changes, I'd appreciate a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, second.
All in favor, aye?
Bye.
Okay, any opposed? Perfect, the motion passes. All right, so on to the most important vote of the day. Just wanted to say thank you, Nick, for being a new member who's also interested in stepping up in your service. So Nick volunteered to serve in the role of vice chair, and with this being April's last meeting, perhaps it's a fitting timing for a vote to put him in that position. So if there's a motion.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
Great. All in favor of Nick becoming vice chair of the board? Aye. Awesome. Any opposed? Great. Okay, so the motion passes. Yay, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much.
I'm excited to help. I know I have huge shoes to fill here, so a lot of work to do.
That's
20
awesome.
months.
Okay, so next, move into some announcements. So, we're currently working on the monitor recruitment. We have met with the selection committee. We have our recruiters met with various city stakeholders to try and get feedback on that selection. They've met with the monitor's office and interim monitor Crittenden. So moving full steam ahead. The board also provided, along with HR and the monitor's office, updates to the position description for the independent monitor. We found that there were a number of updates to be made to sort of modernize the role and better reflect what that role does in its current formation. So excited about that. And the recruiter should be, tailoring that into a brochure in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully getting that posted as soon as possible. So really excited about that. Next update is about the Public Integrity Division policy updates. So as many of you recall, the board has been working on this and the monitor's office for endless numbers of years. And we finally got a signed copy and version of that at the end of June. And so that became active at that time. The fact that we have a published policy means that we can finally hold folks accountable to following a policy and making sure that we've actually got compliance and people are being treated in a way that they understand. We often hear complaints in the past, I've heard complaints from the deputies that they don't exactly know the process. And so having something published allows them transparency into how discipline proceeds. So what we've also committed to as a board is that there are a number of updates that we already know we need to make. We wanted to get something published, and then we'll continue to improve upon that. So that'll just be an ongoing set of work for the board, but we're really excited about the progress, and the Director of Safety committed to getting it done at the end of June and did so. So we're really happy about that. The next thing is in terms of scheduling. So Sheriff Diggins was scheduled to join the board August 19th, and she pays in September 2nd. And in order to accommodate Chief Payson schedule, we moved him to August 19th and Sheriff Diggins to September 16th. Also, in our meeting with Chief Payson, we will be doing a little bit of brainstorming about violent crime. The police department typically gathers data once a year about violent crime, and instead are doing it twice a year this cycle in order to really start to understand what's going on in the city. And the chief has committed to sharing that data with us in advance of the 16th meeting so that we can kind of brainstorm and collaborate on possible solutions. The chief has done a few different sessions with various community stakeholders and wanted to make sure that the board had time with him as well. So I know I am not an expert on reducing violent crime, but hey, I can spitball with anybody. So if others have more expertise, excited about bringing that to the table. So and Daniel will be following up with the chief about the data. They closed the data at the end of July, I think, and then do some analysis. So it'll be tight timing with that August session, but it'll be a great opportunity. Okay, so any questions on those announcements? Okay. We'll move on to our guests today. So we're joined by the members of the nominating committee, and I will actually have them introduce themselves and then also the purpose and sort of operations of the nominating committee. At a high level, the nominating committee is the screening group for community members who express interest in the board and have certain processes that they need to follow in order to seat a board member. So I'll just turn it over to Arash, Didi, and Tamisha if you guys are ready to go.
Sure thing. Do you want to start, Arash or Tamisha?
Better when you start, Dee.
Great. My name's Dee Pearson. I'm one of 3 members of the nominating committee and one of the original members, and I was appointed by the city council. Turn it over to Arash.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I think we actually interviewed all of you in this process, so we know all of you, but it's very nice to see you all in this capacity. You know, we try to join meetings when we can, but it's not as often as we'd like. At least the public forums we try to join. I'm Arash Jahanian. I'm currently in my office as Deputy General Counsel to Denver Public Schools. Like Dee, I am one of the original members. I was the joint appointment. Mayor and city council, and we've been at it for a while now. So, but we've been looking forward to this meeting and connecting you all for some time now, and this is very valuable to us. So, thank you for making the time.
Tamisha?
Hi, I am Tamisha Watkins. I'm new to the nominating committee. I've just been on for a couple of months. Not sure how I was appointed. I know I received a phone call and asked if I wanted to participate in this group, and I said yes, I wanted to be involved. And so I'm looking forward to getting the next people on the commission, the board for you guys.
So I think just 2 things, well, probably more than 2, but when the nominating committee was first created, we had a lot of systems to work through. It was created through statute, which also made some other changes to the COB. And so when it first launched, we were trying to figure out all the systems and processes by which we recruit and vet and recommend a slate of 3 candidates. And I think you know, but the appointments go council mayor joint. And so working both with the city council and with the mayor to find appropriate candidates and send up a strong slate for decision. And then, as I think you know, also the city council or the mayor can choose somebody from the slate of 3, or ask us to start over and reject all 3 members and ask us to send up another slate. So that's the general process. Arash, you don't have anything you want to add to that?
I mean, just to give you all some more details, you know, we select applications and we've been very kind of excited and encouraged at the kind of kicking the butt you all have been able to do with the recruitment process in terms of, and Daniel gets a lot of credit there, I know, and just you all individually as well, in helping us get the word out. So, you know, in terms of recruitment, you know, we've in the past have sent, and Dee, am I jumping the gun here? Are you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You know, we've sent out emails to individual city council members and asked them to get the word out. We've kind of done our own postings on social media. But again, I think you all and Daniel have kind of taken that to the next level recently. We wanted to talk to you about that. In terms of our process, what we do is we get the applications through the mayor, through city council, and otherwise, and there's just like the general posting, which you all went through. And you've all been through it, but just to recap, we do an initial review of applications. There's usually a couple, at least a couple, who we can weed out for being ineligible. They don't live in Denver. There's a handful of people always who, or I should say at least one person always, who sends us something that looks like a job application. It can be easily weeded out. And then just other, but we select a group from the initial group of applications to interview. And then all 3 of us have a set of interview questions that we ask every person. And when we make our selection, we have a spreadsheet that we created a while ago and we continue to update that we look at look at that, Dee Dee. Thank you. So, well, this is the rubric that was kind of jointly developed, I would say a while back, that we applied to the interview, but this is the spreadsheet that we look at. And I mean, you can see we put a priority on district representation on the board, but, we're also looking at other factors, skill sets. Like, for example, I'll just pick on this one, how many lawyers do we already have on the board? Do we really need another one? Demographics we try to look at, so on and so forth. So, this rubric really comes into play more when we're doing that initial review of applications. But this process is always, like Dee Dee said, we kind of created it. It was a little bit of, building the plane as you're flying it. But it's been pretty well established for some time now. We're excited to have Tamisha as a new member and welcome her input into this process, and figure this is a perfect time to have this meeting and welcome your input as well. And I think one thing specifically we were hoping for, Julia, we met with Julia, say a couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago now, and talked about this process more. And I think one of the things we mentioned was some kind of matrix, like a skills matrix, maybe a diversity matrix, but at least to have a conversation with you all in terms of what is looking for. Obviously, we have some massive shoes to fill with April leaving. But I think I rambled maybe beyond what was anticipated. So if I did so, I apologize, but hopefully that was helpful. And again, really happy to be here having this conversation with you all.
That's great. Thank you for the introduction. I think, maybe you all have a few questions for us. I'd love maybe for the board to do a little bit of free-forming about the skills and experience that we feel like we may need, if that's okay to start with. Yeah, okay. So, a couple of, just a basic question to the board. What skills or experiences do you think the board needs, is either lacking or, may need in the future, that would be particularly beneficial in the next 2 members? And I can start by saying, I think obviously April brings a very unique skill set, but having sort of a research and academic perspective on the whole field that we're working in really, brings a depth of thought that may be hard to find a candidate, but not a lot of just PhDs floating out there. So, but somebody who, structurally understands the challenges that, this whole ecosystem is dealing with, feels meaningful in terms of its importance.
Yeah, I just want to supplement that. I agree with Julia. I just made a thought leader in that regard. You're right, that Arash, that there are some lawyers on the board, myself included, and we do bring a certain skill set for sure. But I think we could use some more thought leaders in the criminal justice area, psychology area, DE&I areas. I mean, or a combination of all of those things. I think would be great if we could do that.
The other thing I would throw out there is just somebody who has a background in either community organization or working with nonprofits. I don't think it necessarily needs to be Denver specific, although that would be fabulous because they already know the community. But just somebody who has a background in sort of working collaboratively with community members in a nonprofit setting. I think that brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, mine was going to be same, like that nonprofit, community engaged person who is connected to folks in community, since we do like a lot of community facing work, particularly when we are having meetings with various organizations like Denver Health and things like that, where you have people who have kind of a knowledge base from people within community and or professional kind of expertise as well.
I might chime in to say too that we don't have anybody who is really in the public health sphere. And there are certainly a lot of things going on there. Same thing with, you know, homelessness and housing. You know, there's a lot of community issues that then relate to the work that we're doing. So, you know, I know Larry brings a lot of that in community sort of organizing perspective, but I think, you know, we could double down on that for sure. And, you know, issue-based advocacy experience as well.
Have there been, to pick up on that, has there been any interest on, I mean, what kind of apps are you seeing from nonprofits? I mean, based on what Julie just raised on homelessness, I mean, it would be great to get somebody, think about somebody from Colorado Coalition from the Homeless, or frankly, even Urban Peak would be great. I just don't know. I mean, do we need to do, you know, a better job of, you know, promoting ourselves in those arenas, and maybe in the academic arena too, to touch on an earlier point? What do you think about all that?
I think, yes, we actually in the past have had applicants from both Colorado Coalition for the Homeless and Urban Peak, or formerly associated with Urban Peak. But in those, they haven't all been ones who either sort of made it through the vetting process or the complete application process or the selection process. But I absolutely agree that there's a lot more recruiting that could be done. We're getting good applicants, but we're not getting a broad and huge number of applicants. And I think we really need to double down on recruiting and getting the word out and sort of explaining what the office does and the COB does. I also think, and this is sort of, it is really hard to recruit from community for a meeting that happens during work hours twice a month. It's just really, you know, you have to be in a pretty privileged position in your workplace in order to be able to attend those meetings. And I think that could be and it's a lot of work, right? But I think the workday meetings are a pretty significant barrier to some of the recruitment we would like to do. That's just my opinion. I don't know if Arash and Tanisha would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would think that the people you're going to find in those positions are probably going to be people who are in director positions, CEO, operating officers, and those people are often overworked. So they probably have a hesitancy to also take something else on in addition to that. Historically, have we had interests from any groups that have that work with specifically reentry and recidivism, trying to reduce that?
I think it's been a while.
Yeah, I can't think of any recently.
The Latino Coalition's one that comes to mind. They fund the wages program, which, you know, folks operating wages, it might be hard because those are those nonprofit folks, but maybe there's somebody at the Latino Coalition they have a huge focus on reentry and reducing recidivism. Maybe somebody there would have the ability.
If I reach out, Larry, do you have a contact there?
Yeah, I can definitely get you a contact. I could drop something in the chat here in just a bit.
Thank you.
I think too, we've got a number of coalition partners and have, you know, various phases and strengths of relationship. But that feels like a very natural recruiting pool for us. Folks who are already doing similar work and might be interested in changing the flavor of that.
I'm glad Larry brought up the reentry stuff. And as a public defender, I guess I'm a little ashamed I didn't think of that. The Second Chance program the Second Chance Center just presented at our office about a lot of the reentry work that they do. I don't know what, their bandwidth is for anything like that, but I can definitely forward that information or put their contact information, which they gave us, in the chat as well.
Because I know folks over there, I have reached out in the past
Okay.
to, no, not to them, to the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition in the past, and made sure that I got the, description over to them.
I'm curious, are the rules that you're presented with effective for your recruiting purposes? And I ask that as a leading question because I know they state that we have to have 3 candidates for a position in order for one to be selected. And based on our meeting with City Council, when was that, Daniel? February? Feels like a long time ago, to present, I guess it must have been March or April, to present our annual report. I think council members were open to changing the mode and looking at the rules that we have to follow. And, we're pretty unique in this board in terms of how complicated it is to put people on it in light of the amount of work it is. So I'm just interested, are there things that you feel like, ooh, that creates a constraint that is inhibiting us, and, happy to work with you on removing that barrier.
Can you be more specific?
Well, I mean, if we, have one good candidate for a position, we can't move forward with one good candidate unless we have 3 candidates total. Is that right? And so even if we've got a perfect fit, we can't seat that person because of the rules. So that would be one that comes to mind where it's like, is that really helping us? The model for staffing our board was modeled after judicial nominations. And that is a pretty high bar considering we're like a volunteer, board. So, anything like that, I'm interested in sort of understanding your perspective.
Edie, you look like you want to respond.
I was looking at you, Arash.
I don't know how much of a barrier it's been, to be honest. Like, we've certainly, just to be open about it, like in our discussions, there are often times where there's like one candidate we all love and then, more robust discussion. But I don't think we've ever had and we've had situations where we're like, crap, we just only got 5 applications or something. We know this isn't going to cut it before we even get into it. That happened at least once. But Didi, I can't think of a time where we said, oh, we don't have 3, we can't send this up. I will, like, as soon as you all started talking about nonprofit folks, there's one in particular who we keep sending up, and who I imagine if they're up for it, we'll send them up again. And then there's, another person who we sent up who just apparently did a unfortunate job in their interview with City Council. So, the process is one thing. I think more broadly, the thing we struggle with is we know the rules were put in for a reason. And we have frequently thought of ourselves as wanting to be independent from too much influence from City Council or from the mayor. But sometimes there's just a way to kind of cut through red tape or whatever you want to call it, and for them to communicate to us a clear message. Hey, we're really interested in this person. You sent him up before, please send him up again. And that's actually really helpful to us. So Didi, I hope I'm expressing that kind of fairly, but I think we struggle with the balance between how can we kind of cut through things and be more efficient in our process versus wanting to maintain actually some separation and not have just kind of undue influence.
Yeah, I agree with everything Arash said. And I think that recruitment, successful recruitment, I know we've been talking about this, would be more active. Like we've never had a budget for recruitment. And I'm not sure that's like necessary, but things like we've been talking about, like a PSA, I just feel like a lot of people don't know about the position, or they see it, that they don't have enough information. And I think more active recruitment, you know, across the board by the city council, by the mayor's office, by our council people. As individuals, we're also really cognizant of representation across districts. You know, I just think it maybe needs a little bit more and a little bit broader active recruitment.
Have we thought about expanding the media platforms that we're exploring to recruit? I had brought up before that I know that the COB is advertised, or it's run on Channel 8 on a weekly basis. Is there a way for us to put like an advert at the beginning of that for people who are watching? Just kind of exploring every possible way to recruit additional people.
But so what happened was
I know I've mentioned it several times in DAC, the African American Commission as well, that we were looking for people to apply for the board. So I don't know if anybody else is on any of those other commissions. I think that that would be awesome if we can reach out to them to, you know, let them know that the position is available. I just haven't seen that come out either from any of the partners, I guess, the HRCP partners.
Up as right now.
Yeah, the kids.
Yeah, that's
music
very
area.
helpful.
it's really cool.
I guess a
Got all these,
question
like,
for you all.
sort of,
So this is
these kinda
April's
like
last
artist-made
meeting.
instruments.
We also have Al Gardner who's leaving. Can you remind folks about the dates for closing the applications for the next round of vacancies? You're on mute.
My computer immediately told me, it looks like Arash is looking. And I'm not remembering the dates offhand. There's a series of windows, how often or how long we advertise for, how long we sort of take to make a selection, and then how long the mayor and the city council have. But I don't have all those in my head, although I feel like I should.
Yeah, I should too. We haven't set any deadlines yet. We haven't issued an announcement. We were kind of waiting to have this meeting and kind of have a better recruitment and selection strategy. But by ordinance, we have to like make replacements or make the nominations by a certain point. So let me look that up. I'm in the process of looking that up right now.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot. Those are obviously critical in terms of getting them filled. As becomes challenging for us to have a quorum if we have too many vacancies. So, are there any other topics that we wanted to cover with the nominating committee or with the nominating committee with us?
Now I'm going to bring up again the meeting time, and I don't know what the likelihood is of moving when the COB meets. But I'm just going to put it out there again.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had any conversations about that. I know particularly since we engage in staff, there are trade-offs in both directions. So asking civil servants to work after hours versus asking the board to work during work hours. So, trade-offs in both directions. certainly, understand the barriers, but it hasn't been something we've picked up in a while, and certainly happy to entertain the thoughts of the board on that. But it's not an ongoing conversation with us.
To Larry's point too, it's, I think, hindered our ability to recruit younger people to serve, because they're often not at a place within where they're working to be able to have that flexibility to take the time.
Okay, we'll really appreciate you all coming to the meeting today, and excited about, ongoing dialogue. Arash, it looks like you came off mute. Did you have those dates?
Yeah, so we have to issue in April. I can't remember when you sent us this email so long ago, which we very much appreciated, but I can't remember when your resignation is effective, if it's today or if it's the 31st or a different day.
Yeah, it's I believe the end of the month.
Okay, so we have 15 days from, so basically August 15 is when we have to post the public vacancy notice. And then whatever deadline we set, it looks like we have 30 days after the public application period has closed to send up our 3 nominees. And then I thought that City Council had, or whoever's making the appointment has a certain amount of time to then turn around and do that. I'm not seeing it right now. Oh, 45 days after getting the list. So for our purposes, we need to post something by April 15 and then move from there. And we normally do move pretty quickly once we get those applications. So. And we'll keep you, obviously, we'll keep you updated on what kind of deadline we set, and, look forward to working together on recruitment.
I do think one thing that the COB could, I think, start to do that would be helpful, and to Misha's point, which is that every meeting, whether it's at the beginning or the end, remind people that the COB is something that you can apply for. And particularly right now, we are recruiting, right? So whether it's on the, the meetings that are broadcast or the public forums I've tried to be on and remind folks that that's an opportunity. But I just think, making sure that we do that at every opportunity would also be helpful.
Great.
Okay,
Okay, well, we will let you go and transition to some quick community engagement. Thank you again, really appreciate it. And again, excited about the continued partnership.
Oh, good. Yeah, you said just right.
Thank you.
Bye, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right, well, I know we've got just a few members of the public on, so this may be a very fast exercise, but we wanted to provide individuals the opportunity to provide feedback and comment on opportunities for our recruitment for the next monitor. So we posed in our various channels, and I'll pose here a couple of questions that if members of the public are on our meeting, feel free to raise your hand and we can promote you in to ask your question or provide your comment. But the questions are, what does the OIM do well? What could it do better? What traits and experiences are important for the next monitor to have? And what should be the monitor's priorities, top priorities when they come in? So throwing that out there, I think we've got 2 community members on the line. So if you've got thoughts, great. Otherwise, we'll move on. Are you seeing any hands raised, Danielle? Okay. All right, well, we'll move on. We can always take that feedback via email or our social channels. So feel free to provide that. We are open for that. Okay, so transitioning quickly to some board business, and then we'll move to the monitor's office. So We have signed an agreement with a firm to do strategic planning with the board, which we're really excited about. So we're going to be working with Sarah Moss Incorporated. And thank you to those board members who provided feedback on proposals. Likely dates that we're working with for possible planning, Saturday, August 13th, Friday, August 19th, Saturday, August 20th, Friday, September 2nd, which is, I think, Labor Day, so probably not that, September 9th or September 16th. So, you know, we'll work on that and try and figure out the dates that work best, but keep those in mind. And then one last thing, as you all know, we are working on a video highlighting what the board is about, what we do and how we work. And Daniel is exploring various options to find a firm or work with the city services to create a video, and is continuing to work on that. So no progress there yet, but still proceeding. And thank you, Daniel, for continuing to move that forward.
Daniel,
With-
did you send around, sorry, Julia, did you send it around already? I can't remember, survey on the dates for the strategic planning session? I can't remember.
Yes, we've done that last month, I believe. And so the dates that Julia read out were sort of the dates where almost everybody would be able to attend. There, you know, usually there's at least one, maybe two people, you know, that can't. I don't think we have any perfect dates, but trying to make sure that there's a variety of dates available where, you know, especially if we split it up across multiple, you know, if we have 2 sessions or possibly 3 sessions, probably 2, that we could at least, you know, get everyone have an opportunity to attend at least one of those.
I mean, just a suggestion, because obviously I didn't even remember for fully that you pass that around. I mean, people's schedules could change, so maybe, you know, circulate that just around again, maybe just to confirm, you know, availability on particular dates, and then y'all can settle on a date. Just a suggestion.
I can send out, I'll send out sort of calendar holds perhaps.
Yeah.
People can, you know, if there's conflicts or changes, just let me know.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That works. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, great. Well, let's transition to the monitor's office. Do you have topics that you'd like to cover in the public meeting, or are able to cover in the public meeting?
No, a lot of the cases that I wanted to update the board on are ongoing cases that have not been closed yet, and also some potential policy projects and things that we might want to do future reporting on that are still a work in progress right now, based on information that is considered privileged.
Okay, great. So if there's a motion for the by a board member to move into executive session to discover to talk about ongoing disciplinary matters or others, may I have that?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
I do
Any
very well,
opposed?
thank you.
Okay, see you over in that meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Nice to meet you.